The sun is shining, Brands Hatch is full of gorgeous, delectable, mouth-watering GT cars. Welcome along to free practice 2 for the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup. It's the second round of the Sprint Championship. They've been to Zolder, and now this weekend we turn to the former home of the British Grand Prix. A fabulous circuit, the Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch, but it's one that you have to treat with a certain amount of respect, as was proved in FP1. We'll come to that in a moment. David Addison and John Watson trackside. John, glorious day, fabulous circuit. What's not to love?
Couldn't really get better. I mean, it is just, if Brands Hatch could paint a picture, this is the picture it would paint. It is just truly magnificent. Getting warmer. We're just about up to middle 20s, I think. In the commentary booth, of course, struggling with the temperature, but there we are. 22.6 ambient, 31.4 track temperature. Track improving all the time. We had cars out earlier this morning. Track was, let's say, in a cleaning up process. Ambient and track temperatures were much lower. Expect, I think, in this session to see something nearer to what we would consider to be the normal form of who's quick, who's not quick. The most important thing is to make sure that you do stay off the curbs, particularly at turn 3.
Now this is the circuit. This is the circuit with the first corner being paddock up to the Druids hairpin, downhill through Graham Hill Bend, short straight, long left onto the Grand Prix section. There's Westfield, Sheen Curve, quick bits, daunting bits, and Sterling's the left-hander, which is where Alexander Kornev had his accident in the first session this morning and did a lot of damage to the Mercedes. 3.9 kilometres long, 9 turns. Doesn't really sound a lot compared to modern Tilkedromes, but this is a proper old-school circuit that rewards the brave.
Well, what it is in effect, it's a permanent racetrack that is really a road circuit, and just the nature of the circuit is fundamentally as it was, particularly with the Grand Prix Loop. From the point it was introduced, I think in the early 60s, at a point when race cars, whatever they were minuscule by what we see today. And look at these GT3 cars sitting in the paddock, supercars, but they are physically much, much bigger, and of course they fill up much more of the racetrack, making it slightly more difficult for that ever exciting overtake to happen up into Druids or maybe into Surtees. Nevertheless, hopefully, we're going to see something very special. The field is normally extremely close. Grids are covered by top 20 by, in most cases, under a second. Whether we'll see that tomorrow morning when we've got qualifying for the 2 sprint events on Sunday, we wait to see.
Now the cars will be on track very shortly. The best time this morning in free practice 1 was to the Lamborghini of Ezequiel Perez Compact, and he is with our reporter Dakota.
Ezequiel, now you were fastest in free practice 1. It looks all so good so far.
Yeah, I think it's the car looks really good. My pace was really good. Jumping from one weekend to another into the car is really good for me, and yeah, my pace was really good in FP1, so really happy.
What's the plan for free practice 2?
Well, we have a new set of tires from Monza, so I expect also to be quite in the top. So let's see what Andrea can do, and I'm quite confident.
Let's see if you're quite in the top. Thanks.
So Ezequiel Perez Compact, who has developed quite a long way as a driver, gets better and better with, it's inevitable, more mileage. He is, I would imagine, not going to go out first. Andrea Caldarelli, who finished FP1, will probably start. There's the line of cars. We're slightly delayed, by the way, here. If you're looking at a timetable, thinking, shouldn't they be on track? We had a couple of Porsches to retrieve from the earlier race, which had selflessly parked themselves on the grass and in gravel traps so that people could admire them. So the session is slightly delayed, but we will be in business very shortly. Fans young and old being treated to a mouth-watering array of supercars in this, the European GT4 Series, and indeed the Porsche Club of Great Britain's Championship. And the Grand Prix circuit doesn't get used every week, so it's got to be a special event for the cars to be on this circuit, and it's one that all the drivers really enjoy, including Jack Manchester, who is here for Mercedes, and Jack is with Dakota.
Jack, now you're new to the series. What do you think of Blancpain GT Series?
Oh, it's incredible. The level, the cars, everything about it, the professionalism of the championship. It's just another level. I'm so grateful and glad to be here and part of it.
Do you think you can keep up with these top boys?
Yeah, I'm going to try my best. Obviously, the level is incredible with some of these guys in these cars. You know, all I can do is just just try my hardest and see what happens.
Concerned about anything?
No, I mean, I just try to enjoy it and not really worry and just enjoy being here, enjoy the experience.
Thanks.
From radicals to the Audi TT Cup, Jack Manchester, so short on years of racing, but learning all the time. Bang on cue, engines fire, green light goes on, FP2 is underway. The best time that we had earlier on was a 1:24.7. The slowest time was the Lexus of Christian Klein, 1:28.1, so 3.3 seconds covering the cars. And one of the real surprises, John, was that 19th of the 20 was the #1 Audi that had won at Monza. What was all that about?
I suspect, as you're hearing from Ezequiel Perez Compact, that they have a new set of tyres. I would imagine that the #1 Audi has been tyre saving. They're just using what they have had to run that first practice session when the track would have been cooler, when it would have been certainly a slightly dirtier circuit than it is now, because we've had many other sessions on track, and you clean it up, you get the racing line beginning to develop, and therefore people will save that best set of rubber, or in some cases a new set brought forward from previous events, and that's where the times will come. And it will be essentially on that first flying lap, you might eke out another lap on a fresh set of tyres, but thereafter the tyre goes into its normal stability, and if you don't get the opportunity to make best use of it, you've really wasted that chance.
Ian Loggy there, who we saw a few seasons back in the Endurance Blancpain Series, as it then was called, Blancpain Endurance, now one of the front runners of British GT. Callum McLeod shares the Team Parker Racing Bentley with him, and they'll be quick, inevitably. So they're out of Stirlings. You see the long line of cars, and 20 we should have. Will it be 19? The question mark being over this very badly damaged Mercedes that Alexander Cornet went off the road in earlier on in the day.
Well, there'll be a lot of work in the garage, I'm sure, to try and put the car together. It will depend finally on whether there's any structural damage to the actual chassis, in which case then it'll be very unlikely to see the car ride, let alone this afternoon. There's a qualifying session at the back end of the afternoon. That would be, I think, where they would be focusing to try and get that car back together and back onto the race deck. That was the 35 SMP Racing by ACA ASP.
So by the end of the earlier session, we got the cars down to the high 24s. Stuart Leonard was the first one, a 24.9, and then Compact a 24.7. So can we go mid-24s? 23 might be out of the question unless they've got a new set of boots on. Why would you run those in free practice? Save them for qualifying in the race. Raffaele Marciello is at the wheel of 88. Michael Meadows did the lion's share of the work earlier on. The other significant thing about this session is that it's open to everybody, whereas FP1, the first half is always silver and bronze only, so not gold and platinum drivers. So for this session, it's busier for longer. And Marciello there clambering up the curve, and he's on it, John.
Oh, he is. I mean, I was just watching him when he come through Sheen Curve, and he was running the Mercedes right out to the very edge of the grass on the exit of Sheen. I mean, the one thing about Marciello Raffaele is he is about commitment. Everything he does behind the wheel of the 88 Mercedes is about commitment, and he makes the car work. He puts energy into the car. Here we are on board, coming through down into the compression at Paddock Hill Bend, up the hill. Nobody close to him, so doesn't have to go defensive, and that really at this point is irrelevant. But now with traffic slightly further, maybe just over a second or so ahead of him, he will want to try and clear the Audi, if it is possible, by on the exit of Surtees, when you can get good grip, good bite out of this corner. That last lap for Marciello was 1:25.273.
Track space is good, isn't it? He's got one car, two cars up the road, but he's not going to trip over them.
No, he's not actually. I think as he's backed out of it, you can hear him going through Hawthorne's. He's ready, but he saw the traffic. He wasn't going to be able to clear it on what we would call Hawthorne Straight, so he's backed off, let that traffic get ahead, and then they'll come through, complete this lap, and then we'll begin the process when he gets into Clearways and Clark Curve.
Go back inside the car, you see that he's got the track map on the dash. Now, the flippant thing is to say, oh, he doesn't know what the circuit's like because he's got the track map, but most cars carry them. Is that for a reason like if there's a shout over the radio, someone's off at turn 2, he can look and see what turn 2 is, or is there another reson why they always have a diagram in the car?
I think it's simply to aid a driver who may not have the kind of familiarity with Brands Hatch, for example, that a British driver would do.
Right.
And that was a young Loris Hazeman getting it all out of shape and bumping over the... So it's a question. He's got to learn more haste, less speed. If he keeps pushing and trying to drive through issues to be quick, that's when you can get caught out. Look at again, it goes way off the apex anyway. and then runs 4 wheels completely off, and again all wheels off as he bumped and grinded his way back onto the racetrack.
So Loris Hezemans having a wild old ride, 11th fastest he is. 19 cars we have had in the session thus far, so 35 is the one that is missing, sadly, after its damage of earlier on. Hezemans will be down in the sectors. Now, for the moment, nobody's actually doing anything all that sparkling. Fastest, though, is Raffaele Marchiello, a 1:25.273 from Frederic Verviche. Third fastest is Felix Serrares, the Puerto Rican driver. I know technically he should be Serrares, but the family's happy to go with Serrares, so we will, it's easier. And then fourth fastest now, in 66, is Kelvin van der Linde. This is the car that won the main race at Zolder. Fifth is Pierre Caffer, and sixth is number 1, Christopher Mies, so he's got up there now.
Yeah, it's kind of what we would expect. Now that the session is open to everybody, and they maybe the senior or the number 1 driver in that 2-car pairing beginning to show what the pace of the car is. We go back on board into Paddock Hill, up the hill. So just watch the approach in, gets in relatively early, hugs most of the curve all the way around, then releases the car on the exit, accelerates hard downhill, again brakes in a straight line, then the cut. You see the cones on the inside to stop drivers, shortcutting the apex, runs 2 wheels on the exit, coming out of Graham Hill Bend, and then again a relatively late apex coming into Surtees to give him as much of a straight line, get power on as is possible. So speed will be up to around about 220 kilometers per hour. We saw that, well, 230, 240, 241 kilometers per hour. Down to 4th gear, runs the curve, and that's an aggressive curve on the outside off Hawthorne's End. Back into Westfield, bumpy in the entrance, bumpy all the way through, down the hill, into Dingadell, the dip, then up again, this blind apex at Surtees. You have to anticipate where it is. Raffaele Marchiello, he makes those apexes, runs the car out to the very edge of the track. This is the corner here that has been catching out more GT drivers, certainly over the last 2 or 3 years. That was Stirling's Bend. Now into clearways, and then the exit of clearways, Clark curve, and in fact he comes into the pit lane because...
So down the pit lane comes Marchiello. Now, I was mentioning earlier on the accident that befell Alexander Korniev earlier on in the day. Let's hear more about that. He's with Dakota.
Alex, now you had a bit of a scary shunt earlier. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
And your car?
I hope it's going to be fun for the qualifying. We hope at least for qualifying too. But for the race, for sure, it's going to be fine.
Now, it looks a bit worse for wear, but I was told by your mechanics that the chassis is intact, so it's fixable, correct?
Yeah. They're doing the maximum that they can now. The chassis is okay, yeah, that's fine. We hope for continuing today. Sure, we're going to rejoin tomorrow.
Now, what do you think caused the accident?
Excuse me?
What do you think caused the accident?
There is a really nervous curve. So I was already straight steering wheel, and I just lost the car in 1 second. Can do nothing.
You're definitely not going to do that again in a hurry.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to be safe in turn 8 now.
Well, it's good you're well, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is the exit of Stirling's Bend, turn 8 on the circuit. This was called the very end of it. You can see just the energy was involved. Fortunately, when the car bounced back onto the racetrack, that dissipated an awful lot of the energy that if the car had just come to a stop would have had a bearing on Alexei, but he's fine, shaken, maybe a bit stirred, but there is his car. The team, SMP, are working, and ASP working flat out to get that car, and frankly, looking at it now, I think there's every good chance it will be available for qualifying, which will come later this afternoon.
It often surprises you, look at the car and you look at the damage, but then a team can rip it apart and go to work so effectively, and the cars are designed to be rebuilt quickly, aren't they? You know, the parts and getting to them aren't that intricate, so you can take a whole section off and replace it quite swiftly, which is what you have to do in an endurance race.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the benefits of having what I would call customer turnkey GT3 race cars. Audi is a case in point, Mercedes, Lamborghini, and pretty much every car on the field. And there is a support that follows every race from the respective manufacturers. So if you have damaged your car, there will be an availability of parts from the relevant constructors. We can just watch him coming out of Stirling's. Look at the BMW hop, skipping and jumping over the curb. Not looking a comfortable ride. We noted that this morning, David. It didn't seem to be a car that was generating what I would describe as simply confidence for either driver, and still not really performing as I would have thought potentially it ought to be able to do, because that should be a very quick car, 37. Currently Andrew Watson is just dropped down from 8th to 9th place, so they have made improvement, but the lap time 126.6. Well, that's just over a second, 1.3 of a second slower. If you look at the 17, this is Fred Vervish, fastest overall sector 1, shortly coming to fastest overall sector 2. This has the makings of a fresher set of rubber on the number 17 nowadays, so Vervish comes down to the final turn. Wonderful corner, the car gets slightly light just as you crest over the top of Clearwedge, then it settles down and comes through Clark, and this shoots him into somewhere in the 24s.
A 24.882 puts him top by 0.391 of a second. Vervish, incidentally, has already been reported to the stewards in this session for speeding in the pit lane. And Ian Loggy had a trip through the gravel as well, up at Sheen Curve. So a couple of things to catch up on. So Vervish goes top, Audi ahead of Mercedes, as there is Norbert Siedler in the 114 Lexus, another new project from Emil Frey. Lorenz Frey's team, Emil Frey Racing, likes a challenge, doesn't it? Because it's battled on with the Jaguar project, and it still has the Jaguars, and now the Lexus has been added to it.
Well, the Jaguar program was very much an independent program by Emil Frey and the group in Switzerland. The Lexus program, this is a current state-of-the-art, if you want, road car from the Toyota family. Lexus is their high-end brand. So it is work in progress. It will take them probably the best part of this season to really discover and find out, but what they can benefit from is a parallel program taking place in Japan, where GT racing at different levels, but are comparable to a GT3 car. Very, very strong, and I have no doubt, given time, that this will be a very impressive, let alone competitive GT3 edition.
I mean, the funding is there to do it, because they're doing both endurance and sprint. They're also doing occasional Nürburgring races, like the 24 hours next week. The car's gone into limp home mode, hasn't it?
I don't know what that is. He's got the hazard lights on, limp home mode, whatever.
But it's stuck in second gear by the look of it. That's, I would suggest, an electrical glitch. So, glitch, I'm afraid to say, will bring it into the pit lane. I suddenly hesitated, thinking, have we had a full course yellow, and looked down at the window, but there's no flag. So it's a problem for the Lexus. So that's the next one that Dakota can scuttle off to go and investigate for us. The Lexus, we like the Lexus, we like the team, because they're proper underdogs, Emil Frey Racing. We don't like it when their cars have problems. So Dakota, on your toes, what's happened to the Lexus? 16th Norbert Siedler was, and fingers crossed that they can get that car turned around. And the other question is, what's happening to the 14 car? Because it was slow in FP1, and Christian Klein is still struggling in FP2.
Well, he's only done 2 laps, so it's maybe been an out and then not in enough. But this car, the number, no, it's not the 66, it's the 17. The car currently fastest, Fred Vervish, has gone fastest once again, sector 1. So, assuming he can get clear through sector 2, sector 3, would expect to see further improvement as we go back to the 66, which is currently 4th quickest.
So downhill goes 66. This is Steins Krockhorst at the wheel at the moment. The car was, in the earlier session, 7th fastest. Steins Krockhorst, who has come from karting, Formula Ford, Formula Renault, Toyota Racing Series, largely they're single-seaters before coming to GT cars for this season. And was a winner at Zolder as he goes now down towards Stirling's. So he's got to find over a second, actually, to get himself up to the very front. But again, it's free practice, so people are doing different things. And into Clark Curve comes the Audi, run by the Attempto Racing team, Arkin Arka's team, that for many, many years was one of the real gun teams in German Carrera Cup, the Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland, but has never had a very happy time in Blancpain GT. Tried different cars, initially with a McLaren that was wiped out at Monza, you might remember. Very, very wide goes Krockhorst at Paddock Hill Bend, but with the Audi, straight away, I think Arka's outfit has found a good niche and a good rapport.
Yeah, and I think with you buy the Audi, you get all the, I was going to say all the expertise, but so somebody running very wide, was the Audi running very wide, coming out of Paddock, going back to the park, eventually maybe anticipating it was going to run very wide. But when you buy an Audi, there's so much information available, and the setups, anybody can just walk and essentially look at another car and say, well, that car's working, our car needs something different, let's do that. If you run a Bentley, it's slightly different because it's only the Bentley, the M Sport team who run, in effect, in the Blancpain Endurance Series. These are privately owned Bentleys, Parker Racing. 2 seasons, more to 3 seasons worth of information available, but it's only 2 Bentleys in the field.
So that customer support program differs brand to brand. Audi has always excelled at it. Now this is Callum McLeod at the wheel, 7th fastest, and fastest in Pro-Am at the moment. You've got the Pro-Am and you've got the Silver Cup as well to factor into all of this, but McLeod, British Formula 4 champion, knows his way around the Grand Prix circuit here, bouncing up onto the curbs, and we understand that 114 is okay. This is the Norbert Sieder Lexus, but setup problems. I'm still hesitant as to why it slowed, and anyway, the team say no problem, but we'll hopefully get the car back out again in due course. But the Lexus is losing quite a bit of track time at the moment, collectively. McLeod using all of the road. That last lap that he did was a 26.1, 4/10 down. We've had an improvement from Andrea Caldarelli, a 1:25.604. Not quite as quick as the car did in the earlier session, though.
No, but we did hear that there was a fresh set of rubber. In fact, I think it was quoted by Ezekiel Perez Compact that a new set of rubber available. So I'm assuming that Andrea Caldarelli has had that option given to him. And again, just people clambering onto the curbs and the exit of Graham Hill Bend. Don't know why it's the one corner on Brands Hatch that seems to be the most difficult in terms of staying within track limits.
Glorious noise, isn't it, as the cars power down towards Hawthorns. This has always been one of the main plus points of GT racing, the different shapes and sizes and sounds of the cars. That very distinctive Audi engine note. Raffaele Marciello, 2nd fastest in the pits as you look at number 1 then. Christopher Meese. Now, John, he's done a personal best in the first sector. Is there anybody up the road that might get in the way? No, real estate is clear, isn't it? So Christopher Meese coming to the end of the second of the 3 sectors, goes slower slightly. Can he pull it back in the 3rd sector?
But he's just over a second slower than Fred Rafish in the 17 Audi. This time, assuming he gets through the final 2 curves, Clark or Clearways and into Clark. So I would assume this might see the number 1 Audi go 2nd quickest.
Over the timing line goes Christopher Meese, and the answer is he stays 3rd. It was a better lap time, admittedly, 1:25.481, but Caldarelli goes ahead of him and goes 3rd quickest. Andrea Caldarelli, 1:25.441, there he is, goes 3rd fastest. So the Lamborghini goes ahead of the stablemate, the Audi R8. So you've got Audi, Mercedes, Lamborghini, Audi, Mercedes, Audi, Lamborghini, and then Bentley 8th. For the moment, and change that again because up to 8th goes Mercedes. Nico Bastian goes 8th quickest.
And interestingly, is this car that is the quickest of the Lamborghinis, the 63, the one we associate Mirko Bortolotti, Christian Engelhardt to be the hot or the quick Lamborghini in the Grasso Racing stable, still yet to show the form, the pace that one would assume it will do. Again, probably not running the set of the allocation of new tyres until it really matters, and that will actually only come maybe at the very end of the session just to get a sense of where they might be, but primarily it will be once they get to qualifying. But careful on the exodus of Sterling's, again been personal best, followed by the 63. Interesting to see how these 2 cars conclude their laps.
And the 3rd car, 82 of Loris Hezemans, has had a trip through the gravel at Sheen Curve, which after what we saw earlier on, perhaps is not a surprise because he was certainly wringing his neck. Over the line goes Caldarelli and is 4th quickest, 1:25.398. That was a better lap time. Up to 5th has gone Stein Schronkhorst, 1:25.491. And here, down towards the right of Clark curve, number 90, Nico Bastian, but he was down in sector 1 and sector 2 and he aborts the lap and goes for the pit lane.
So we're 20 minutes into the session, and it's really everybody goes back into the pits. I mean, there's more cars currently in the pit than we have on track. A good time to go on track, but teams starting to go through the feedback that they're getting from drivers that maybe didn't have so much seat time in free practice 1 earlier in the morning. Nicolas Jamin.
He's 6th fastest.
Yeah, just looking to see who he's 6th quickest, yeah.
Which isn't not bad. I mean, again, he uses all of the road coming out of Graham Hill Bend. That short run along Cooper Straight up towards Surtees.
I mean, there is somewhat surprisingly between first and second, there's 95 hundredths of a second, but then first to third, you got 3/4 of a second. Ordinarily, you'd have maybe 15 or 18 cars coming by 3/4 of a second. So teams are being sparing in the rubber principally that they're using. So I'm assuming that 17, the Lamborghini, and 88, the Mercedes, used fresh-ish or in some cases maybe even a new set of tyres.
Down towards Sterling's goes Jamin, a French-born American driver, comes out of the left-hander onto his run down towards clearways. Road drops again downhill, turning to the right. The twitch as he turns into the corner, and in the sectors down in both here. So no improvement coming, I fear, for Nicolas Jamin. Up towards the timing line, breaks the timing beam, and that lap is a 26.4, so 8 tenths down on his earlier best. Now there is number 25, currently being driven by Simon Gachet, who is another newcomer to GT cars in the last 18 months or so. Came out of LMP3 within the European Le Mans Series into the Endurance Cup last season, but now with Christopher Hauser sitting alongside him and helping to develop Simon Gachet. The ex-single-seater racer is developing nicely.
Well, he's still learning Brands Hatch because his exit very wide, maybe a little bit too early, and the exit of Surtees to get the maximum drive that he would need to give us the ultimate top speed. As he goes into Hawthorns, runs the curb, but the car stays straight, doesn't have any deflections. Again, it's watching these bumps going into and through Westfield. Car is unsettled. You've got to be on your toes to make sure that doesn't suddenly snap into a difficult oversteer. Through now Sheen curve, and then the final run down into, this is the bogey corner pretty much every time we come here. Sterling's Bend, and then the final shot acceleration down into clearways. Probably my favourite corner. I have to normally never discuss my favourites, but just clearways. You had a really well balanced car. It was just to get it right. You could be so quick through there.
And what about Paddock? Is that a good, rewarding corner?
Paddock's a great corner, but I always felt I got more back from clearways. The thing with Paddock is if you get it right, it's great. If you're slightly wrong, it can be a nightmare. Whereas with clearways, you could see through the corner. There's more to see. It's only when you get to the very top, not the hill actually going into Paddock Hill, then that you can actually see then the corner, and then you've got this big, very steep drop and a big compression at the bottom.
I mean, it is, as we said in FP1, a proper old school circuit, and it's one that the drivers like because it is so different from the modern generation. Now, this is Albert Costa you're riding with. He is in number 14 Lexus. He is 14th, correction, now 15th fastest, because we've just had an improvement from Carlo Van Dam. But let's ride, John, with the Lexus.
So out of Druids, down the hill, everything's very straightforward and simple. Check your speed, make your apex, then let the car run. That's about as wide as you're going to get away with before you'll be getting any penalties. Interesting, holding much tighter entry into Surtees. I'm not really sure why you're going to do that. Only if you're racing another car would you probably want to take that line, or that's my view. Then down Pilgrim's drop into the compression, and then down a couple of ones, in this case down 3 gears. I don't know again why you want to go down to third gear, through Hawthorns, then into Westfield, and then again sort of the third compression of 3 that you get around through Sheen curve. Let the car run out to the very edge, but don't put a wheel in the grass. Tuck the nose in, get the car straight as soon as possible as you accelerate off Sterling's. And then really it's a very short run down into the entry into clearways. Well, he's under the pit lane as well, so you didn't get quite to see how the Lexus, I'm almost calling it the Toyota, it is a Lexus, the luxury brand of Toyota.
So 15th the car now is. We've had Michael Meadows replace Rafael Marciello, as there is Carlo Van Dam heading up toward the Druids. The Flying Dutchman is 6th fastest here. And Van Dam, who's done the majority of his racing in recent years out in Asia, but was delighted to come back into European racing last season, comes into Graham Hill Bend. It's a very striking paint scheme on this car, stands out anywhere. and Carlo Van Dam up towards Surtees. First sector fractionally down on his earlier best and 3/10 down on the absolute best in that part of the lap.
Well, it's certainly a very striking colour scheme, and all the better for it because it does stand out from the rest of the field. We're accustomed to seeing Ferraris usually in red, sometimes in black, but this Kessel racing car resplendent in the colours of the support it gets from the beer company.
Singer Beer, which is the family brew of the Bienvenido family. He slowed right down, and there's no yellow for a full course yellow, so it's him backing off. More news, 31 has been through the gravel, which is the Josh Cahill, Aaron Taylor-Smith Bentley. Cahill showed behind the wheel of it, 82 from Carrera, up to third fastest.
Yep, so a much more experienced Frank. Oh, there we see, and this is the Bentley going into the gravel up at Sheen Curve. Enough momentum to carry the car through the gravel and a bit of grass cutting. And always go back to the car that has just gone third quickest. But grass cutting like that, all it does, it fills up your brake ducts, your air intakes with grass and other rubbish that might be off the line. It's Frank Pereira now showing the kind of speed that, well, every time he gets into a GT car, whether it's a Audi, a Mercedes, a Porsche, or now a Lamborghini.
Yeah, he's becoming versatile, isn't he? I think we've said this before, but there are some drivers that go and drive for one brand and stay there, and they become typecast with Audi or McLaren or whoever it might be, and then others do move around a lot. And Pereira we've seen in Porsches, we've seen him in Mercedes, now in Lamborghini, and it doesn't matter what the car is, he's just very quick.
He is quick. But what also happens is, I don't know if this is the case for Frank Pereira or not, but it's been in the past, you've seen drivers who join a team at the point where the team has had great success. The time, in my view, to join a team is when it's climbing up to that potential, so that you are part of that momentum to take the car forward. When you move into a team that is the championship team, for argument's sake, in the case of Gas or Lamborghini, there's not an awful lot more that you can contribute other than just what you bring to the car with your ability. Whereas if you're building a team around you, there's a different level of satisfaction.
So from Pereira, who is going to be the quicker of the two drivers in that car, helping to try and bring on Loris Hezemans, get him up to speed. There through is number 90, which is the Nico Bastian, but now Jack Manchester, Mercedes. So where is Jack's car? Well, it's 11th in the times. Jack Manchester stepping up to the main game, isn't he, really, of the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup for this season, where although they're 1 hour races with mandatory pit stops, these are absolutely flat out 1 hour races.
Absolutely, and here at Brands Hatch, it is Jack Manchester. I suspect the Audi's making its way back into the pits. He's been somewhat trapped and goes down the inside, and, well, you know, could have been thought of the Lamborghini coming behind Frank Pereira, rushing up behind the two cars. So this lap for the Pereira Lamborghini, number 82, that's been frustrated
by Neil Stephenart, it was, in the Audi, the car that he shares with Marcus Winkelhock. So Stephenart for Santalot, given the lion's share of the mileage here to get himself used to the circuit. Now there, number 2 is currently Dries Van Thor at the wheel, only 14th fastest.
Never have any fear, never worry. Other than maybe the BOP. The BOP is a moving, you might call it an asset, whatever.
Yeah.
And suddenly a car that's just won, as it happened to do at Monza 2 weekends ago in the endurance aspect of Blancpain Sprint and Endurance, maybe there's a change in their BOP. But ordinarily, I would expect to see Dries Van Thor and that Audi right at the sharp end when it comes to qualifying.
Indeed, and we know what WRT is like. It creeps into the mix. You never write them off. And if you think back to when we talked through practice and qualifying at Monza, we were concerned that the Audis were nowhere. Which team were you interviewing in Parc Fermé? WRT, a race win that came to them in the last hour.
Yes,
so yes, don't write them off.
No, not at all. I mean, the strength that WRT as a team has got is, first of all, strength of numbers, but it is a properly well-structured, well-oiled machine that understands what motor racing is about, and they understand how to win. It's not just about being fast, it's understanding how to win.
So there through is Vantor, and he's up to 7th. So with number 1 Audi 4th, we know we can get them up to the pointy end. At 1:25.534 is the Dries Vantor time. Vantor will share with Will Stevens in that car. They were only 13th in FP1. 63 in the meantime has Christian Engelhardt at the wheel, who only did really an outlap at the very, very end of the first session. Mirko Bortolotti did the driving. They did a practice pit stop, and Engelhardt drove it round to back into the pit lane. So now he gets some proper mileage under his belt.
Interesting to see where this 63 Lamborghini finishes up. Again, using it the sort of a slightly softer entry into Surtees. Some drivers prefer to hang out much later and make it a more acute sort of round or square it off rather than rounding it off, as you saw Christian Engelhardt doing on this current lap.
Was somebody off the road on the outside, or was I being tricked into thinking? Yes,
there
it was
is
somebody
Jack
off.
Manchester.
It's Jack Manchester, you're quite right. So Mercedes off, and that'll be a yellow flag zone. Whether it's a full course yellow, whether it's an interruption to move it, we'll have to wait and see. But I'm afraid Jack Manchester is off at Hawthorns, and it's a lazy lose, and round he goes. Gravel does its job, stops him.
Yes, it did. I mean, didn't appear to be any difficulty with the car, just suddenly back and it got away. Maybe under braking, maybe downshifting a little bit too quickly. Something might have just caused the rear to lock, and then once it's gone, it's gone.
Red flag.
Yeah, I think that's the sensible thing, because it's at a difficult part of the corner. It's a fast corner, it's a fast approach. So it's quicker and safer just to red flag it. Everybody goes back into the pits, and then the recovery vehicle will come and retrieve it. There's no damage other than this. The gravel needs re-raking. So it'll be a quick snatch and hopefully a release as well.
So everybody head back to the pit lane. Free practice means that the clock carries on ticking down. Jack Manchester hadn't done, relatively speaking, that many laps, had he? The car's done 15, and its best was on its 8th lap. So he's probably, because that was a Nico Bastien time, he's probably only done about 6 laps, 5 to 6 laps at best. So down the pit road they come. Is this a frustration for the teams because they can't carry on working through that programme, or are they able to bend quite quickly because of stoppages like this?
It might coincide with something they were planning to do, you never know. But normally any interruption, such as we're seeing now, a red flag because the car's gone off, it's the flow, the loss of the flow to me. It interrupts, your rhythm sort of gets broken. And I mean, some teams would have been automatically coming in this lap, so they'll not be so concerned. But if you're about to start a flying lap, having made a change, that will be a frustration.
So the track is quiet for the moment, but all of this does count within the hour. It's not like qualifying where it would be the clock stopped. All this does eat into the session then. Qualifying for Blancpain Sprint Brands Hatch is at the end of the afternoon, and then 2 races tomorrow. It's a much more compact timetable this year. So the teams had a pretty frantic day, and that's why Acker ASP is toiling away to get this Mercedes sorted so it can go out at least for part of qualifying and get some laps in. So it is, at the moment, Frederic Verviche who is the fastest. He's hogged number 17 and has done a 1:24.528. Raffaele Marciello and Michael Meadows' car with a Marciello time second with 95 thousandths between them. So Audi 17, Frederic Verviche fastest. He's got to go and see the stewards after the session, and he's also with Dakota.
Fred, fastest so far. You're looking really quick out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also surprised. It's my first sprint this year, so happy to be back in Blancpain Sprint Series with Audi, with WRT. So at the moment, looking good, yeah.
Do you think your competitors are getting worried about you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're just following our plan, and so far so good. So so I hope we can keep going like this.
Now, you mentioned the plan. What is the plan?
I don't know. There is just a plan, and we just follow it. No, I mean, the engineer has some program that we have to go through, and we're just doing that. And it's good that we're in front, not in the back. So, and hopefully we can keep this momentum in quali. But I think it will be maybe different. So.
Top secret stuff. Let's see how your plan unravels. Thank you.
All right.
Plan's good so far, apart from this speeding in the pit lane drama that he's got to go and see the stewards about at the end of the session. So
it would have been interesting to know, actually. He may not have wanted to tell us, but which sets of tyres has he been running, and how fresh was that set of tyres that he secured the fastest lap so far in the second practice session, 1:24.528.
That's part of that master plan that's on the spreadsheet. And we've also touched on the Singapore Ferrari. Carlo Van Dam was driving it earlier. 8th it is. He's with Dakota.
Carlo, now this weekend's going to be really important points for your championship. Do you feel confident?
Don't put me under pressure there. Yeah, well, we're struggling a bit so far, but it's just practice. That's what we did in Zolder too, and then when qualifying came, we were there. But it's definitely still some work to do.
How much are you enjoying racing back in Europe?
It's good. It's nice because I get to spend a lot of time here back with my family, and the circuits and the level is just awesome. And although Asia is picking up a lot, we also see with the drivers like Pitti coming here and doing well, I think we still can learn from Europe.
Fantastic, good luck, thanks.
You're leaving already?
So there is the car that Van Dam drives. It is Pitti Bierenbachti behind the wheel of it, and he is going to be first out at the change of the light. Everybody getting ready in the fast lane, so it shouldn't take long to get Jack Manchester's car out of the gravel, and then we can go back to the last. What are we going to have? 22 minutes or so, really?
Yes, by the time the cars come across start-finish line, there'll be a little over 22 minutes there. Now Jack Manchester able to drive the Mercedes, staying way off the racetrack.
They're going to send him up the little vehicle access route, aren't they?
Yeah.
So not back to the pit lane.
That'll be a frustration, because having not damaged the car, just maybe got a load of gravel. So that car, well, maybe, you never know, maybe the marshals will point him back to the circuit, get him there. Well, he is, in fact, but what Jack, you need to do is not shake the car and brake with the car on the racing line. You're going to do that with all that gravel on board. Try and do it not, and you can see just the circuit. Look at the rubbish that's coming from underneath, and all the aerodynamic parts of the car that the gravel gets into. It's all now being shaken and removed. So he's back in the will be back in the pit lane very shortly, and the team can go about clearing out whatever is left. Again, brake ducts in particular. Great place. Oh, listen to that.
Yeah. As soon as he braked,
yeah,
crashing out of the bottom, doesn't it?
I mean, you've probably got what, 20 kilograms of gravel or more in the car.
Right, he's in. Fast lane is open, and so the race director, Alain Adon, will very shortly give the signal to get the session back underway. Green light. Session is live, and Pitti Bierenbachti gets away now. So the session resumes. 22 minutes still on the clock. Are we going to get to a point at the end of this, not necessarily the first few laps, but more the last few minutes, John, where people start to pretend it's qualifying and put the quali set up and maybe scrub tyres in and treat it as though it was the first few minutes of that session?
I mean, if I was in the position of a principal team manager, I would want to get an idea come the end of this, maybe 10 minutes to go. What is my ultimate pace? What can we expect our car drivers to deliver? But it's balancing then the benefit of doing that against using a set of tyres that you might need to use, because all you have to do in any session is get a major lock-up, and that'll be your front sets of tyres. There'll be no use. So it's just trying to judge and balance what are the upsides from doing so against the potential downsides.
21 minutes on the clock. Everybody goes pouring out pretty much. Got one or two that are still in the pit lane. Largely the teams that keep telling you they've got no problem, like Emil Frey Racing, for example, and the BMW is still there. The Andrew Watson, Lucas Moraes car, that's still in the pit road, but pretty much everybody else being shepherded out. Font Pereira's on his way down the pit lane. The BMW is on its way as well. So as Pitti Bierenbachti comes up towards the timing line any moment, ready to start a proper flying lap, the Ferrari surges past the pits. It only does the sprint rounds, remember, this car. Through it comes. Pitti Bierenbachti is currently 8th fastest. Let's see what the Thai driver can do now. Traffic ahead as well.
Yes, so he's got the BMW. So the BMW's gone out. I mean, the Ferrari was the car that led the field back onto the track, so BMW coming out at the tail of the field. A little bit of frustration because you just start your flying lap and, well, the BMW stops and basically steps sideways to let the Ferrari go through. That's good use of your mirrors, considerate use to a car that was on a flying lap, but now he's got a line of cars directly behind, so he's going to have to step aside more than once to let the two Audis that are following go through.
The other thing we're looking for now are any green sectors. Well, we've had one, and it's because Marcus Winkelhock has taken over the car that's slowest. So, replacing Neil Stevenart, Marcus Winkelhock lacks nothing by way of experience, and he is pressing on. So that car will get up the order, but inevitably in the Pro-Am category, it's against this Ferrari, for example, and it won't be as competitive because there's quite a gulf really between Winkelhock's pace and Neil Stevenart, who is much the less experienced driver. Number 1 is being warned about track limits at Graham Hill Bend. That's Alex Riveras, the Monza winner. Monza Endurance winner, that is. And now up comes the Flying Beer can. So the Singer Beer Ferrari, Pity Beer on Bakhti. No improvements in sectors, but we have had an improvement in the sector 2 from Dries Vanthoor in Audi number 2.
That was the first lap for Beer on Bakhti, first time lap. But the best time that car done, Carlo Van Dam, 2.6 or so seconds quicker. Now that's obviously not a fair comparison, and Beer on Bakhti will probably, now that he's back behind the wheel, settle in and get the rhythm and go significantly quicker than his previous lap.
That's the BMW running wide of Lucas Moraes coming out of Graham Hill Bend. 26th there. Marcus Winkelhock was 19th and he's now 13th straight away. A 1:26.002 hauls the car up the order. It must be a bit frustrating for Winkelhock here. With all due respect to Niels Stevenart, he's not yet at his level of experience nor pace, and so whatever Marcus does is affected by his co-driver, of course.
Yes, and I mean this is one of the situations where you've got a car that you've got. I mean, Marcus Winkelhock could win any motor race in a GT car, and he's partnered with an inexperienced and probably someone who hasn't got as yet the natural speed that Marcus has. So that's not, well, that's unusual to see Winkelhock getting that little bit wayward coming out of Sheen Curve. Nonetheless, you're a professional driver, you get paid to do so, and would you rather sit at home watching on your TV or on your internet service, or would you rather be behind the wheel? I think I know which one Marcus Winkelhock would rather be.
Indeed, no question. Winner last year of the Nürburgring 24 Hours, and of course still he's in the record books of leading his first Grand Prix, isn't he? The European Grand Prix of 07 in the Spiker. Right, here's the replay. What did he do wrong?
Well, it just looked like it was almost as if he let the car run just too wide. There was no real energy being put into the car going into Sheen Curve, just maybe allowed it to run a little bit wider than necessary as you go back on board with Dries Vanthoor down the hill. He just holds it in one gear there. This is not going to be, wow, a little bit wide, in fact more than a little bit wide. So I don't think this is going to be a stellar lap from the young Belgian driver. Again, traffic ahead of him, and while it isn't having a direct effect on the aerodynamics of his Audi, he's not quite close enough, but when there's a car ahead of you, it's a mental distraction. So he's looking forward to see, where will I catch this car? Can I catch it at a part of the racetrack where I can sweep through cleanly? The BMW pulls over to the right, lets Vanthoor go through again. Good use of your mirror, considerate use of your mirrors. So this is not a lap that Dries Vanthoor is going to put into the record books. Just going through the motions, even stays in a higher gear than you'd normally do. Now sort of backing himself up coming into Stirling, as he doesn't want to overrun the car ahead, now hard on it. And of course he's got the same problem. He's already in a position where he's going to close down those two cars that are slightly ahead of him.
So with just under 16 minutes to go, we've had another improver, and it's Callum McLeod who's hauled the Bentley up to 6th. A 1:25.435. Stefan Ortelli's going quicker in the Lexus number 114 as well now. And this is the car, 14th quickest for the Formula Le Mans winner, who remains as enthusiastic as ever, because Stefan Ortelli, and it's him that's shown on the timing screen, not Christian Klein, ignore the graphic for the moment. Even though Stefan has been away from the Audi factory drive that he had for, 3 seasons now, he still just loves his racing.
Well, he's a great asset to a team. He's got so much experience. He brings that enthusiasm, and that's very important in a team, that you've got somebody who's positive in his demeanour, rather than somebody who's always, you know, moaning and groaning. Comes across the line, and that's an improvement. Very
Up
good.
to 6th quickest.
Now, David, as great a driver as Stefano Tani is, that's a time set on fresh or new tyres.
Must be, mustn't it? Yes. And Callum McLeod, I think likewise, in the Bentley, there he is. You can see how that car's poise is so different now, isn't it? That really is being taken by the scruff of the neck, and the car is responding.
Yes, but there's grip within the car to enable them to do that. That's using, again, either the best of the rest of their tyres or a new set. And they will find out precisely what this car is capable of doing. Currently down in 7th place, 125.5. It's just over a tenth of a second down on the current best time this car's done.
So Stefano Telly in the Lexus, a car that we were a bit concerned about earlier on, but he's managed to get it up there. 88 Michael Meadows you're looking at, who is only 95 thousandths of a second away from the Fred Verviche time. Verviche has now given over to Stuart Leonard, and there is Piti Bieran-Bahti running wide. Callum McLeod muscles the Bentley up the inside. Now the Mercedes booms past as well. Michael Meadows, double Carrera Cup GB champion. So again, somebody that knows his way around here from both Porsches and also British GT. Ex-Ferrari racer in that, from the BMW going back over a decade. So the Mercedes taking the fight to the Audis here. Audi's got strength in numbers across the different teams, but this is a good potential winning car. Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello.
This car certainly, it's a great race car. This particular 188 is a great, quick race car. Michael Meadows and Marcello Raffaele, who was, to me, was maybe the standout driver in last year's Spa 24 Hours. I think he did the maximum possible of any single driver. He seemed to be in the car pretty much all of Sunday morning into the afternoon.
That was Frank Stipler's trick a few years ago, wasn't it? Into the pit lane comes Michael Meadows in. Also ahead of him is Callum McLeod. 13 minutes to go. So again, engineers working through this plan, this programme of what they want to achieve, get the setup right, then work about scrubbing in tyres. And a big drift by Kelvin van der Linde.
Yeah, the back end of the Audi just about was checked. You can see it was already sliding just as he was at the apex. And you do not want that, absolutely under no circumstances, especially in Paddock Hill Bend.
Kelvin's uncle, Etienne van der Linde, used to race around here in Formula Renault going back to the mid-1990s. But Kelvin van der Linde, who's done lots of racing in Germany, both in things like the Volkswagen Championship and then the ADAC's German GT Championship. Jutta Brand's Hatchback going strongly. And Dries van Thor is the man behind the wheel at the moment. Comes down towards Hawthorne. He's got Piti Bieran-Bahti behind him. Where's the van der Linde car out of all of this drop to?
9th.
Yeah, you're right. And neither of the Attempto cars actually in this session looking as competitive as they were in FP1, oddly.
Again, I mean, it's a team strategy they're running through, rather getting drivers seat time, making small changes. They want to do it maybe on a car, just you're going to say, yes, indeed.
Having said it wasn't competitive, Van der Linde has just done an absolute best in the first sector. Marcus Winkelhock goes 7th, number 26 Audi. Marcus can only do one thing, and that's go flat out. He's doing so. He's gone 7th fastest. And 82, Loris Heseman's being warned about track limits at turn 3, not for the first time today.
No, and I mean, one of those occasions, the car airborne as he went over the rumble strips on the outside of Graham Hill Bend. So 66, Kelvin van der Linde there is the car through Stirling's personal best, sector 2. So this will clearly see him elevate up from 10th position. Whether it'll get him into the top 2, top 3, that will be what he'll be aspiring to. Got a good clean exit, nobody around him, nobody to interfere with the car, the aerodynamics. So where will that 66 car end up? Quickest.
Excellent lap by Kelvin van der Linde then. 1:24.386. Put him into the right Audi. He's an Attempto driver, not a WRT driver, and he goes now up through Druids, a 10th to the good.
And that is the fastest single lap so far today out of the 2 1-hour sessions that we have had. Clambering all over the curbs, and again, you've just got to be careful. Fastest again, gone even quicker than he did in his previous quickest overall lap, 26.7 in sector 1. Longish sector 2. Circuit 2.4 miles, 3.9 kilometers. turns in and carries pretty good speed. Yeah, good speed through and on the exit of Hawthorns. And then that sort of hop, skip and a jump everybody's suffering from as they come through Westfield, then down Dingledale into Sheen Curve. God bless you, Barry Sheen. What a star.
So Van der Linde with an absolute best, a personal best, and new tyres presumably to do all this on. He's going to go faster still as he comes through Clark Curve. A 24.386 last time. That's what he's going to try and beat to stretch the margin. 23, 24, 235. So Van der Linde does go quicker still, even though he was actually a bit slower in the last sector on that lap.
Yeah, but that first sector was a very strong time. He had purple in it, so Van der Linde has found grip, confidence. Again, look how much the Audi, the vertical movement through the bumps through Westfield. He's not improved in that first sector. We'll see what he does in sector 2. No, he hasn't. So again, they're certainly not afraid to swing the tail out. He did it on his first fastest lap going into paddock. Not afraid to let the Audi dance around the nose.
8 3/4 minutes to go. Up towards the line comes number 2, Vantor 7 fastest improves, 125.381. And who else is out there improving? Albert Costa in the other Lexus has gone a bit quicker. Quite a few going into the pit lane, but not to call it a session, I think, but to do a driver and or tyre change before they go back out for the last few minutes.
So just 8 minutes of the session remaining. So looking at the Lexus as it comes down into Greymill. But the car looks, it looks a reasonably well balanced, for a car that is new, still, in and under development. Albert Costa currently down all the way down in 17th place, but behind Girolacti in the Ferrari. And the Ferrari basically just lifted off the throttle, let the Lexus get through, which is sensible driving. If you're not on a hot lap, then there's another quicker car coming behind you. Allow him to go through, because maybe one day you'll want the favour returns, and if the memories are not good, the outcome will not be very good.
Indeed so. So the order shuffling a little. We have, at the moment though, Audi, Mercedes, Lamborghini, followed by Audi, Lamborghini, Audi, Lexus, Audi, Bentley. Carrera being the best of the Lamborghini drivers in this. One disappointing car in this session is number 63, which has hardly drawn attention to itself at all. Bortolotti is behind the wheel now, and it's 12th. Christian Engelhardt drove it first, but again, is that a team keeping its powder dry or working through its programme or genuinely struggling for pace?
Well, they were not happy in Monza because they did get a BOP adjustment, and that they felt had a major contribution to the car's competitiveness. Whether that has been redressed for Brands Hatch, which is a sprint event, not an endurance event, or quite simply Grasso Racing are just so confident in the driver pairing of Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt. They know the car is a quick car. They know what they have got the capacity to deliver. So that maybe they're just very, very comfortable with the package they've got, the drivers they've got. They know they've got speed when it counts. That will be when they put on new tyres.
There is the Lexus then out of Westfield, number 14, Albert Costa at the wheel. And suddenly the pit lanes are getting very, very busy again. Last stop before the final stint up to the checkered flag. Riding on board there, Lexus again, coming out of Sterling's onto the power.
Well, the Otelli car was 6th, dropped down to 8th. The 14 car of Albert Costa, personal best in the first two sectors. So will this be a fresh new tyre run for the 14 as it comes across the line? 16th, so small improvement, but 125.8 for the 14 Lexus, 125.4, just over 3.5 tenths of a second.
So Costa improving, and also Christopher Hassel has improved as well in number 25 Audi. Now there, having been concerned about it, is Christian Engelhardt's Lamborghini. So he's just taken that over from Bortolotti to go back behind the wheel. Comes through Sheen Curve, nothing exciting in the sectors. And again at Monza, they were off the pace seemingly in practice. The car was, I thought, there or thereabouts in the race, but Gottfried Grasser thought it should have been more there than it was. So is the car going to be faster still when we get to the really serious business of qualifying? Should be.
Well, I would say yes, it should be. We don't know. And the performance we saw in Monza was expectation. They'll be out, they'll be on pole position. It never was fulfilled. And that was due to the BOP adjustment. So whether, as I say, well, that is going to be the case here as well. Well, it's only when we get into qualifying and people are going to run new sets of tyres that we will actually finally get an answer to what is the true pace of the car that was really the dominant driver car pairing, team pairing in 2017.
So Engelhardt hustling on, but he's down to 13th fastest. Albert Costa up to 15th. And who else have we had shuffle around? Michael Meadows third down the pit lane. So 4 more minutes to go. It was the Grasser Racing team that won here last year, of course, as you look at number 63. Christian Engelhardt started his career really in Porsches, one of the leading lights in Carrera Cup Germany and Porsche Super Cup.
Wow, putting rubber down on the exit of Sheen Curve, that's not something you would expect to see. I mean, to lay rubber, that's spinning up the rear wheels. Clouds of dust. So somebody's had a trip across the gravel coming through Sheen Curve, and there is the BMW. And so Marias has got it wrong, either on the entry or on the exit. He only caught the tail end of it.
And has come to a halt. So was it a problem that put him off the road? And 3 minutes to go. He gets going. I was about to suggest, could that be an interruption or a stoppage, but he's got going again. But sits offline. So this car has really struggled today, hasn't it? Sad to say.
I mean, it never looked, I would say, comfortable from the minute it joined the track. Here we are. Well, just caught momentarily that back end swinging around. It looks like to me too far over to the left at the critical point of Sheen Curve, and the outside of the track will be dirtier, and consequently you'll end up beginning a slide, which is what we ended up seeing the final part of.
Yeah, exactly. So BMW off the road. Very off the road there as well is Audi number 1, Alex Riveres at the wheel.
Pretty wide coming out of Surtees, rolling the back of the Audi over the curb, and again you get into that sort of vertical hop, skip and a jump, but you've got to get back in control because it's not an ideal way. And there's the incident. He was too far to the left, too early in the exit of the corner, and the inevitable occurred, and that was it. Spins on the grass and ends up just at the edge of the gravel trap.
Hopefully without any damage. So the car gets going again, but we have, what, now a minute and a half of the session still to run here. Downhill goes number 1, Alex Riveras, in sector 1 down, sector 2 down, over the timing line of 31.1 last time, and a 25.8 this time, but a 25.2 is his best, so no improvement. Who's at the wheel of the Bentley? Aaron Taylor-Smith, former touring car racer. Touring car race winner indeed in the BTCC. Comes up towards the line. Still, I know it's the older generation of Bentley, but it's still great to have these on the grid, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a significant car. This is a race-winning car in 2017. So, okay, the new evolution to Evo 2 has come along, and it's an even further sophistication on what M Sport did when they developed the Bentley Continental GT3 in the first place.
And Compank at the wheel of number 19 is 6th fastest. There's less than a lap time left in the session now, so drivers here on their final lap. The flag will be out at the end of this lap. 23 seconds or so we are away from the clock. Hitting 0. Pitty Beer and Bakti has just gone through. The top 3 Van der Linde, Leonard and Meadows are all in the pit lane anyway, so their job is done.
Yeah, so they're done for this session, and they have a pretty good idea now because they've all three within 0.3 of a second of one another, so they've got a clear indication to where their car performance will be on virtually new or very fresh Pirelli tyres. Others may have done the same thing, but not maybe gained the same benefit.
So the flag is out, and with the top three all in the pit lane, you're not going to have many improvements within that. You're not going to have many elsewhere, I don't think, because the sector times aren't coming down either. We had that little flurry when they went onto new tyres, and
wow, late cut.
Yeah, pit, pit, pit comes the call over the radio, I suspect, to Perez Companc. In he comes, and you might as well, because if you're not improving in the sectors, what's the purpose of finishing the lap?
Oh, there's none really.
No.
Check the flags out, so
yeah, exactly.
All you're going to do is just continue on and put another lap's worth of wear onto the tyres, onto every element of the car. So they've achieved what they've set out to achieve, I'm assuming, 6th quickest overall, due to Frank Carrera, but not a bad place to finish.
No. So Calvin van der Linde it is, who is the fastest by 0.293 of a second. Let's hear from him.
Kelvin, now you're fastest in free practice too. What a great place to be at this stage. Are you ready for qualifying?
I think so. It was a good reference for qualifying to get the first lap in and just feel what the new tyres felt like. I always have a bit of a theory is if you go out and practice and everything feels good, then the rest of the weekend should follow. So hopefully we can keep this trend going. That's the goal. So let's see.
You look quite happy.
Yeah, that's why I'm smiling. So
there you go. Good luck. Thanks.
So Calvin van der Linde the quickest by 0.293 of a second. It is a good start to the weekend for Attempto Racing, and having just said the car looked as though it was struggling, bang, he dug deep and pulled a lap out of the bag. But, of course, it is what can be achieved in qualifying that really matters, and we'll come to that in a little while.
Of course, the heat's continuing to build here at Brands Hatch, and by the time we start the qualifying session, it's still going to be pretty much in the low 20s Celsius. It's one of those little nasty the curb. You see that sort of quite sharp chamfer. If you catch that incorrectly, that's what really throws you off.
So let's just have a quick look at the order then. It is the Attempto Audi, thanks to Calvin van der Linde's time quickest, ahead of Frederic Verviche and then Raffaele Marciello, with the top four all within a second, Frank Pereira being the fourth. Then comes Christopher Mies ahead of Andrea Caldarelli, Dries Vanthoor 7th ahead of Stefan Ortelli, Marcus Winkelhoff 9th ahead of Callum McLeod, Carlo Van Dam 11th and Christopher Hasse 12th quickest. 13th fastest is the Lamborghini number 63, Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt a long way down here ahead of Nicolas Jamin, then Albert Costa from Nico Bastian, the Bentley of Kagan and Taylor Smith 17, a long way back Peter Skorhorst and Pierre Kappa, and then the troubled BMW 19. Let's have a look at the highlights then of FP2 here at Brands Hatch. In these glorious conditions, the cars all lined up ready to go at the start of the session with the WRT Audis eager to get going and get a time in. And so Christopher Mies was first out in Audi number 1. Loris Hezemans, as he has done for quite a lot of the day, was really wide at turn 3. He's been repeatedly warned about track limits, but that was a proper moment as he ran it wide over the curb. And we also had number 17 Audi going a little bit wide out of Hawthorne as well. The curbs being used by everybody at Sterling's. Thankfully, people not getting themselves in the same dramas that we had for Alexander Kornev in the first session. Nicolas Jamin was pushing hard in the Mercedes that ended up 14th, and off the road, Josh Cagill's Bentley. Also, Jack Manchester, and although Cagill's Bentley got going, Manchester's Merc didn't, and that meant the red flag came out to stop the session. When we got going again, Marcus Winkelhock hauled his Audi up the order to 9th. It was down 19th at one point, with slow laps being put in. Pity Beer on Bakhti had this big moment at Sheen Curve, but got away with it. And also Lucas Morais lost the BMW as well, and he had a big slide. So the next serious business is qualifying. 4 p.m. local time. We'll be back for that. See you on the other side of the afternoon. Bye for now.